Well, Greenbay Properties owns offshore assets and is listed in Mauritius. It's linked to the resilient Fortress property family. And that market cap is sitting at 14.9 billion rand. Historic yield here of 2.5%.
A recent listing, and as you point out, they're part of the resilient Fortress, Rock Castle, Nepi family that's kind of broadly associated with Des de Beer and various of his associates.
Yep.
But Grant can tell us why this one is special. It's only been listed recently. That means the share chart is going to be hard for our computer systems to access.
So I think what's quite interesting about this stock is the majority of its assets are listed. So essentially when you're buying Greenbay, you're buying other listed property companies specializing predominantly in retail, so in America as well as in Europe. And what's quite interesting, about 44% of the listed portfolio is in US infrastructure, and quite a bit of that in energy. So the supply, so the pipelines, as well as the storage for liquid natural gas. And then they have a couple of malls in Portugal as well as in Slovenia. But I think the real big attraction here is, of course, as we mentioned, the resilient family. And to see what they did and how successful Nepi and Rockcastle were, and to see if they can't replicate this with Greenbay.
Have you looked at Greenbay previously?
Well, we did. Our first inquiry about this one was to inquire whether, in fact, buying this one gave you partial ownership of the Green Bay Packers, which is a NFL football team in the Northern American states. But I'm sad to say that's not the case.
It's not associated
they don't own
in
the
any
Green
way.
Bay Packers. But they do own all these US assets. So I guess to throw this back to you is, why would one go into this one as opposed to Nepi Rockcastle, which is now a single entity, or as opposed to Into or Capital & Counties, or one of the more established offshore investment funds?
It's a unique value proposition.
Its unique value proposition currently is the exposure to US infrastructure, which are quite a stable asset class currently. And then the Nepi and Rockcastle, I mean, they're all focused on Central and Eastern Europe, where a lot of these funds have been going, where I think Greenbay will focus on Central and Eastern Europe, where there are opportunities, but predominantly Western Europe.
So there's better geographic diversity when you talk about the US infrastructure focus here.
That's right, and you're getting exposure to Spain and Portugal, which seem to be having some type of slow but a cyclical recovery in their property prices.
Does it sound exciting to you, Paul?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously there's been a lot of demand for offshore property exposure within the property portion of a fund portfolio. I just want to ask one more question about the connection with the group. So what you see when you look at Greenbay's shareholder register, very significant chunks are held by Fortress and by Resilient and by other entities inside the family. That's kind of how they do it, isn't it? They get these new entities onto the market, they do a fundraising, they get them started with these things, and then they follow the rights out of the other funds.
That's right, so they do a lot of equity raising, and obviously Resilient and Fortress would be supporting them. But it's also very important when you are trying to acquire assets in Europe that you have a sizable balance sheet. And the malls that they've been acquiring in Portugal have been in combination and in partnership with Resilient. So they really need that partnership, use Resilient's balance sheet in order to acquire some assets.
Can we call this one? Do you want to have one final question on it?
What about global retail and the people who are saying that because of online shopping, malls are going to be in retreat over the next
that you don't need that physical
20,
infrastructure?
It definitely is a big threat. Is it in its infancy? Is it going to be a sustainable trend? We don't know. So they do have quite a bit of exposure to US retail. But it is in what we as South Africans know as super regional malls. So I don't think it's your big box value mart type of exposure.
Hot or not, Grant?
I'm hot on this one. I think it's a very interesting story to follow, and I'm hoping that they can replicate the success of Nepi and Rockcastle.
Paul?
Yeah, I think you've got to back this management team. They really have done tremendous things and been very sensitive to creating the right vehicles for the market and what it wants at that moment. It's a pity we couldn't show the share chart because it has been firm since listing. You're hearing good things. So
you're going to go hot?